Bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que vous allez bien. I am so excited for today's episode because today we will be looking at an interview by the one and only Céline Dion, the iconic international world-renowned singer who's famous for My Heart Will Go On and other hits, all the timeless classics. But today we are going to be learning French with her from one of her interviews that was filmed like a decade ago. We're going to be focusing on a very tiny segment of this interview. We are going to be learning tons of new words, expressions, idioms just from this tiny segment. One of the reasons I was excited for this episode is that Céline Dion, a lot of people don't know she is Francophone. She speaks French as her first language because she comes from the province of Quebec in Canada. And of course, a lot of the songs that really blew up and known as timeless, a lot of them are in English, but trust me, she is well known in the Francophone world for her English and French songs. And it's really interesting because she is Canadian, just like me. And I, like her, I'm Canadian, and I also speak French and English. So this was really interesting to see. And before I start, I just wanted to introduce a very interesting fact, and that is her name, her full name, actually is pronounced differently, and she even pronounces her name differently depending on where she is. So in France, as you can see from this interview, she does change her accent when she's like on French news or French shows or in France in general. She does change it to make it a little bit more European. A lot of like Quebecois people do that. And I noticed that this is the case because when I watch her French interviews in Quebec, she definitely has a complete different way of speaking. But that being said, one of the things that really changes is her name. In France, in Europe, her name is Céline Dion. Céline Dion. Céline Dion. In Quebec, it is not pronounced like Céline, in. It's more like Céline, Céline. Céline Dion. Céline Dion. So I try my best, but anyways, that's how I hear it. Anyways, let's get to it. Allez, c'est parti. Let's watch this interview.
Bonsoir.
Merci d'être avec nous.
C'est un plaisir.
Une question simple. Comment ça va?
Ça va super bien.
Très bien.
Très heureuse d'être sur Paris à nouveau.
So he says, the interviewer asks, comment ça va? And she says, très heureuse d'être sur Paris à nouveau. Très heureuse d'être sur Paris à nouveau. Now here you'll see sur Paris. I did not want to spend too much time on this because actually there's a huge debate amongst French speakers of this word. A lot of French speakers do not agree that sur Paris is correct. For me, I'm not the judge of that, but I do not want to spend more time on this topic. Maybe another completely different video. I really want to focus on the interview, but basically there's a huge debate on the use of this word and the context it can be used in. There are many interpretations for the use of sur Paris versus à Paris. A lot of the threads online, forums online, you'll see that we have not yet really we are not really seeing eye to eye on this topic. And I don't want to talk about it further, but all you need to know is that some people will say sur Paris and à Paris. You'll hear both of those terms. When we teach French, usually we will say à and then the city name. Okay? We have a very interesting word here. It is à nouveau. Très heureuse d'être sur Paris à nouveau. À nouveau means again. So she's happy to be in Paris again. So there's another similar word as well. It's de nouveau. So à nouveau is a very interesting word. It's used a lot when you're doing something again but differently. Especially in this context, she's coming back to Paris again, doing different things. And you'll hear in the interview what kind of things she's doing differently. But à nouveau is a very, very interesting word that you can use instead of like encore, right? It simply means again. So à nouveau means again.
Je suis venue l'an dernier plutôt, c'était un court séjour.
Okay, so here you see something really interesting. She actually made a mistake. Let's take a look at it again.
Je suis venue l'an dernier plutôt.
So she was like saying, je suis venue l'an dernier, right? So she caught up on her mistake and then she said,
C'était un court séjour.
She corrected to l'an dernier. But anyways, it doesn't even matter. When you want to say last year, there are two ways to say it. And you can say l'an dernier or l'année dernière. They're really the same thing. L'an dernier, l'année dernière, it is basically the same thing. It means last year. This just goes to show that, you know, Francophones also make mistakes, just like you make mistakes in your native language. And then she just corrected it, right? So.
Mais cette fois-ci, je suis installée pour un petit peu plus longtemps avec des spectacles. Alors c'est un grand plaisir pour moi.
Vous n'avez jamais vraiment le temps de profiter de la vie. Là, vous me dites, vous allez passer...
This is a really good one. Vous n'avez jamais vraiment le temps de profiter de la ville. Vous n'avez jamais vraiment le temps de profiter de la ville. What does it mean, profiter de la ville? Here, la ville is Paris. La ville est Paris. Profiter de has a few general meanings to it. It could mean to make the most out of something, to enjoy something, to take advantage of something. And profiter de, in terms of making the most out of something. An example of this could be, j'ai profité du beau temps pour aller me promener. I made the most out of the good weather outside to take a walk. Or you could say to your colleague, profitez de votre temps libre pour vous reposer. Make the most out of your free time to rest. A lot of the times it's used to mean enjoy. Nous profitons beaucoup de nos vacances. Like we're having a lot of fun on our vacation, right? And if you are on your vacation, you find the sunset, you have a very nice view, you can say, je profite du moment pour admirer le paysage. So this is like, I'm enjoying the moment to admire the landscape, the scenery, right? Anyways, let's continue with the interview.
Temps de profiter de la vie. Là, vous me dites, vous allez passer quelques temps à Paris.
Vous allez passer quelque temps à Paris. This is really interesting because quelque temps it's a really good word to use sometimes when you don't really know the definite amount of time to staying somewhere or going somewhere. It really means spending a short amount of time somewhere. For example, here, vous allez passer quelque temps à Paris. Quelque temps, he's saying it because he doesn't know how many days, how many hours she's staying, right? So he just says quelque temps. You can say, for example, je vais passer quelque temps chez mes parents ce week-end. I'm going to spend some time with my parents this weekend. Do we know the amount of time? That we don't know. But quelque temps really just conveys the idea you're spending a little bit of time there, but don't know exactly the amount of time. Okay, let's continue with the interview.
Vous allez passer quelques temps à Paris. Vous avez le temps d'avoir une vie normale. Une star normale, on dit toujours de Céline Dion. Une star quand même qui a une vie compliquée, toujours entourée, toujours avec du monde autour d'elle.
Okay, so this is a really good one. Let's stop here. He was saying a bunch of things. Une star qui a une vie compliquée. something, 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 avec du monde autour d'elle. Now let's look at this word, du monde. In this context, du monde means people, a lot of people, right? For example, you could say, il y avait du monde à la fête, which means there were a lot of people at the party. And if there are not a lot of people at the party, you could say, il y a pas beaucoup de monde. Il y a pas beaucoup de monde ici aujourd'hui. Right? So, il y a pas beaucoup de monde means there's not a lot of people. Monde means world. A lot of learners get lost with this word, but du monde simply means a lot of people. And avec du monde autour d'elle. Now, autour de means around. So, autour d'elle means around her. And you could say this for autour de toi, autour de lui, autour de whatever, autour de la table, par exemple. Okay? You can say, il y a des arbres autour de la maison. Il y a des arbres autour de la maison. There are trees around the house or surrounding the house, right? So it's physically surrounding, but autour de is also has its metaphorical meaning as well. In this context, you could talk about it in the sense of talking about an event, for example, or talking about a situation. For example, il y a beaucoup de discussions autour de ce projet. There's a lot of discussions surrounding this project, right? Il y a beaucoup de rumeurs autour de son départ soudain. Il y a beaucoup de rumeurs autour de son départ soudain. There are a lot of rumors from his sudden departure. In the context of this interview, it is like autour de lui, autour de toi. Il y a toujours du monde autour de toi. There's always a lot of people around you or surrounding you.
Disons que c'est pas une vie normale, mais on est des gens normaux.
Ok, disons que c'est pas une vie normale, mais on est des gens normaux. Here, disons que is very much used in spoken French, and disons que is like, let's just say that they're talking about her life, which is kind of a sensitive topic, and she's saying, let's just say, to generalize it a bit, let's just say we don't have a normal life, but we are normal people. Definitely, if you want to say, let's just say that, disons que c'est pas une vie normale, mais on est des gens normaux.
Vous regardez les autres stars. Est-ce qu'il y a des personnalités comme ça dont vous vous dites, tiens, là, elle me bluffe. Là, c'est quelque chose de fort. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres chanteuses, chanteurs qui vous bluffent aujourd'hui?
Quand je suis chez moi,
All right, I love this because they introduce a very new word for a lot of you folks, and that is bluffer. Bluff. Okay, bluffer. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres chanteuses, chanteurs qui vous bluffent? The meaning of bluff or bluffer is to impress somebody, to amaze someone, impressionner. If you have a friend who's really good at singing, you can say to them, tu bluffes tout le monde avec ton talent.
moi, j'écoute mes enfants. Je vis pas trop dans l'industrie de la musique beaucoup. Mais quand je suis dans l'avion ou quand je suis dans la voiture, de temps en temps, je vais mettre mes écouteurs et je vais écouter Rihanna ou Adele ou Bruno Mars. J'écoute de temps en temps des chanteurs qui me fascinent, que j'aime beaucoup, à l'occasion.
Alors avec ce nouvel album, Love Me Back to Life, vous travaillez avec une star du rap, du R&B, la chanteuse Sia qui travaille avec Rihanna. Ça a scotché votre fils?
Énorme.
He asked, ça scotché votre fils when he was talking about working with Sia, right? Sia is like the artist, Sia. Here we have another verb which is scotché. Now scotché is to blow someone away, to amaze someone, right? So, est-ce que ça scotché votre fils? He's asking. He's like, did that amaze your son? The fact that she's working with Sia. Sia is like the artist, right? And yeah, Sia, est-ce que ça scotché votre fils? Let's see what he has to say, or she has to say about him.
13 ans, René
Ouais.
Charles. Et je lui disais justement, bon, maman commence à recevoir des titres avec, bon, j'ai Sia qui m'a envoyé un titre. Il me dit, Sia, la vraie Sia. Sia, maman, elle écrit pour Rihanna, elle peut pas écrire pour toi, c'est pas possible.
Pourquoi
j'ai
pas pour vous?
Ben parce que moi, je suis sa mère, je peux pas être cool. Rihanna, elle est cool. Moi, je suis Céline, je suis sa maman. Alors, il était très impressionné. Mais alors là, il était scotché, pour utiliser votre terme, quand il a appris que Nio chantait avec moi, puis il avait écrit quelques titres pour moi. Là, il a tombé par terre. Il était très...
So the son was like just really in shock that, you know, she's working with artists like Sia, now working with Neo, and like ça scotché son fils, right? That's amazing. And it's really interesting how she tried to use the word scotché as well, but you could tell it was a little bit not natural for her to say. She was kind of like, pour utiliser votre terme, scotché, you know, she's like, you know, just to use your term. The reason is because in Quebec French, they don't really use this word, scotché. I don't think I've heard a Québécois say this word. But she says, il est tombé par terre, right? Il est tombé par terre, and this means to fall on the ground. Falling on the ground because he's so amazed, right?
Alors, vous me parliez de votre fils. Elle est vraie, cette anecdote, parce que vous avez su ce que c'était de franchir les étapes. Vous savez d'où vous venez, votre histoire familiale. Lui, un jour, vous l'emmenez à la Cité de la Villette à Paris et il vous dit en sortant, maman, est-ce qu'on peut acheter la Villette?
Oui, c'est vrai.
So they're talking about a funny story of Céline's son who went to La Cité de la Villette. There's a museum, it's called La Cité des Sciences et de l'Industrie. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, that's what it's called. La Cité des Sciences et de l'Industrie. It's like a huge museum. It's fantastic for kids, and a lot of tourists that come with children, they go here if they're going to Paris. And it's really, really fun. It's, again, like I said, it's one of the biggest museums, and like it's a huge attraction. So when her son saw that, he's like, Maman, est-ce qu'on peut l'acheter? Maman, est-ce qu'on peut l'acheter? Which is like, can we buy it? Right?
Mon fils est allé pour la première fois, il a été tellement emballé, il est revenu et c'est sûr, ma mère un
So he went to this cool place. Il était tellement emballé. Emballé, ça veut dire quoi? Emballé is like you're thrilled, super, super thrilled. You can say, for example, je suis super emballé par ce nouveau projet. Je suis super emballé par ce nouveau projet. Ils étaient emballés par l'idée d'organiser une fête surprise.
C'est un peu dommage parce que ton fils vit dans le Cachemire. Mais il me dit, comment tu vas faire?
Pour lui expliquer le monde réel.
Oui, et puis je me suis dit...
So, Céline's mom was telling her, ton fils vit dans le Cachemire. Cashmere is cashmere in English. It's just a really different spelling in French. And it's like this wool that is very, very expensive and very soft and very comfortable, but it's very expensive and it's a very high quality material. So when the mom was saying, ton fils vit dans le Cachemire, it's like, oh, your son is living in a family of wealth, of comfort, etc., etc., right? So let's see what they have to say.
Mais maman, c'est sûr que je peux quand même pas, moi, élever mon enfant comme toi, tu m'as élevé.
Je peux pas élever mon enfant comme toi tu m'as élevé. I can't raise my son just like you raised me.
Merci d'avoir été là avec moi aujourd'hui et n'hésitez pas à vous abonner. On se retrouve très bientôt pour un nouvel épisode. Merci beaucoup et à bientôt.